Hey guys, so I just got back from a DDR tournament last week. I had a great time. When I show up to these events, I kind of tend to make a scene, all night, hardcore gaming sesh, cracking monsters with the boys, smoking hot cosplay babes, one around each arm. I'm kidding, obviously. I usually tend to just keep to myself. I'll show up and play my matches, and then I'll go home. Either way, it's fun to see. I saw some of my internet friends, and anyone who wants to just come up and talk to me, I'm totally fine with that. I'm getting recognized at tournaments now, which is kind of new and scary, and it was a 6-hour drive. So you can imagine, by the end of it, I was exhausted. My legs hurt, my back hurt, my arms were sore, my throat was sore. Anytime you go to a tournament or any big thing, you can expect to get a little sick. So I was ready to get home and just lay down, relax, and recover until Gus hops on the DDR Twitter account and he says, "Gus what, everybody?" That's his iconic catchphrase. "Remember all of those 20th anniversary songs? Well, they're all getting challenge charts, whether you want them to or not." And I think everybody here collectively went, uh-oh. And so now, I guess I'm gonna have to talk about them. For this review, we'll be taking a look at the song and the chart. I know the songs are pretty old at this point, but I still want to yell at them, or say they're good. You'll just have to watch and find out. The expert charts are all kind of whatever and inoffensive, so we're gonna skip over those. That's not what I'm here to talk about. The challenge charts are unlocked by playing 5 brand new courses. The official post has them in this weird order. I'm gonna be talking about them in this order. I think that's enough explanation for now. Let's kick off the review. Of course, these songs don't need any introduction, but Butterfly is the most iconic DDR song of all time, hands down. So to me, a big 20th anniversary celebration of this song should have some level of reverence for the source material. Unfortunately, I don't think that was accomplished here. Soda takes way too many creative liberties and tries to get fancy with it, especially in terms of the chord progression, to the point that where if the vocals weren't there, it would be hard to tell that this was supposed to be Butterfly. With the vocals, more often than not, it clashes with the music now. 1, because it isn't the original chord progression, and 2, because that's not what my brain is expecting when listening to Butterfly. I will admit the production is well done, reminiscent of any classic System SF track of years long past, then the quote-unquote modernized with a fucking dubstep drop right in the middle. So overall, what was supposed to be a big celebration of a classic song falls flat because of Mr. Fujimori's attempt to pretty much change everything about it. This is more like a gritty reboot than an anniversary remix. If you want something that does Butterfly justice, obviously you could look no further than the Core's K remix for Dance Rush, which in my opinion accomplishes this perfectly while staying hip and modern, making it infinitely better than what we were given here. The chart is overstepped. It's a 16, we all knew it was going to be the case. The bass line and synths in the background do have a sort of syncopated rhythm that could make it work, but the notes themselves don't line up well enough to really feel like there's any coordination between the notes and the music. There are some cheeky references to old Butterfly charts, double steps and all, but the difficulty of the rest of the song makes them seem way out of place in comparison. You can't make everything drastically different and then expect to milk some quick nostalgia on top of it for like 4 measures. I want to clarify, since I'm predicting this is going to come up a lot in this video, think of it like squares versus rectangles. A chart being bad and a chart not fitting the music are 2 different concepts. However, if the chart doesn't fit the music, that does kind of make it bad. Maybe bad on purpose, but still bad. So the exact same reason that the song fails, I think the chart pretty much has the exact same problems. Overall, I'm giving this song a B+. another all-time classic. This is more what I expected when it comes to the anniversary songs. It has a brand new exciting sound while still keeping the foundation of the original. There's just one very tiny problem that stops me from enjoying this as much as I'd like. It's the vocals. Don't get me wrong, I have no problems with Kanaya Saba as a singer. Originals like Do the Thing or Get Up, they're in English too, but you don't notice anything too weird since there's nothing to compare it to. Have You Never Been Mellow is a very famous song where the words are important. If you have trouble pronouncing words like, say, have, never, mellow, it's gonna stick out a little bit. At the end of the day, I can only assume this is a complete non-issue for anyone in Japan listening to it, but as someone who speaks English, it does sound a little silly. But forget about that, let's talk about the chart. Because oh boy, they went wild for this one. You can make the argument that Butterfly had some residual beeps and boops in the background that maybe could be interpolated as notes, but this time there's no excuse. How on earth did they get a 16th note dump stream with 30-second bursts for half of the song? Why? To raise the difficulty? For what? There wasn't any sort of obligation to make this a big boss song. There's a 15, a 16, and an 18 among the other charts. Who decided it just needed to be a 17? The song is honestly, it's being deprived of a fun and fitting chart just because they had to make it super hard. And while I very much like the song way more than Butterfly, it takes the maximum penalty for ill-fitting step chart, known as the Reiwa coefficient, and I'm settling on an A. Alright, now we're getting a bit more obscure. I didn't know this, but in Supernova they replaced the original with like a new inferior version for some reason. That's not the one we all remember. We're talking about the bus stop version. It's also funny how distant and detached these songs are from the originals. Long Train Runnin' was recorded by the Doobie Brothers in 1973. That makes it older than any other song on the list. We're like 5 remixes deep or something. The song takes a little bit from the original, but sort of gives it a new melody for the drop that I think still fits the song extremely well. It may as well not even be a remix of the bus stop version. They took out any of the b-boying or whatever. There's no dance, I'll make your body rock, long train running and it won't stop, or anything like that, which I'm totally on board with. I think that would have cheapened this version. There's such a high level of energy in production now. This is a banger. Finally, we have a chart that makes some attempt to follow the music. The rhythms to go along with the guitar strumming in particular are pretty satisfying. They didn't go for, whoa, crazy super duper evil boss song this time, so it's only a 15, and that's fine. Though, that 15 rating is pretty dubious at times, like having long 16th note streams for the snare rolls and the build-up. Oh yeah, and 15s don't normally do this. Right off the bat, when watching this for the first time, my animal instinct brain was instantly like, oh well, the chart's ruined now. But honestly, the more I thought about it, at that tempo, it's still a really cool pattern. Either way, Long Train Runnin' is the first one on the list that I can say with confidence that both the song and the chart are in fact good. This is a double A. This is a tough one for me. Out of all of the 20th anniversary songs, Sky High is definitely my favorite. The issue is, I've kind of already painted myself into a corner by calling out how Butterfly changed too much from the original, and this song is pretty much a complete reimagining of the original. So I'm sorry, but I'll have to just play the biased opinion card and say this one works because I like it better. It even has an EDM drop melody, not unlike Long Train Runnin'. Well, they're made by the same person, so. And you know what else Sky High has in common with Long Train Runnin'? An English singer. That's because Attic Inc. has the connections and manages foreign talent in-house. See, there's Bodhi Kenyon. And look, there's Dario Toda. More on him later. That means Haruki Yamada is much better equipped for producing these tracks compared to everybody else on the list. Now, as you all know, tech charts in DDR became a thing overnight and there was nothing we could do to stop it. So they decided to throw another one of those in here. Of course, they once again erroneously assumed the tech automatically bumps up the difficulty, so this is a 17. Though it's still nothing to scoff at. This is a tricky chart. They've got foot switches, foot switch mini jacks, side switches. Now, before you look at that and say, oh, DDR's copying ITG's homework or something in that vein, remember, there's only so many different places your feet can move to. It was gonna happen eventually. ITG simply went ahead and accepted it, while DDR was too scared to jump into the deep end until just recently. What I will say, and this is cosmic level irony, I go on and on about how terrible it is for freeze notes to always be green. Well, the foot switches are all marked by freeze arrows, so now, if they ever did change that, it would mess up the system they have in place here. You can't win. Now, while Sky High is slightly overstepped, who am I kidding? This chart is awesome. There are a couple actual mistakes though, like this pattern, the first time goes to nothing, but then the second time you see what it was actually meant to go with. Little things like that. Otherwise, it's actually really creative, has tons of distinct patterns. I'm giving Sky High another double A. And of course, I saved the best for last. The best to talk about, not the... well, you'll see. Cartoon Heroes was actually my go-to song on DDR Extreme, besides Witch Doctor, so I'm sure it wasn't a surprise to many people that it was joining the 20th anniversary celebration. But the issue is, for me at least, again, playing the bias card, but also throwing the nostalgia card on top of that. The original is so untouchable that I can't imagine any sort of remix doing it justice. I like the halftime part at the beginning, giving it an almost ethereal charm as the memories flood back in, but when the rhythm picks up, there isn't that same driving energy from the original. I want to say it doesn't feel fast enough. It's missing a lot of the quick syncopated instruments. The acid bass line is swapped out for a really low rolling bass, so there isn't enough going on musically. And then I guess a minute 30 was too short, so it tacks on a pretty pathetic coda that does nothing except peter out until the ending. But we do get more vocals from Jasmine. I'm sorry, Kanaya Saba, again. This is no fault of her own, but as someone who knows what the words are supposed to sound like, it just takes me out of the whole experience. Dario Toda, on the other hand, has no problem. That's because Dario Toda speaks English just fine. In fact, did you know Dario Toda was on the Japanese version of Sesame Street, where he taught the Muppets how to say words in English?
わかったわかった、教えます。口はね、英語で mouth って言うんだ。うん。
英語でなんて言うの？
ああ、傘。傘は英語で umbrella って言うんだ。
Umbrella?
そう。
Maybe he could have pulled her aside and like gone over her pronunciation a little bit. I don't know.
No! This is a pencil!
He also voices one of the Ultramen in Ultraman alongside, you guessed it, Maxwell Powers. Anyway, nostalgia aside, well, no, not nostalgia aside, nostalgia front and center. There's nothing they could possibly do to ever top the original, so this song is sadly a miss in my book. Now, Cartoon Heroes was already one of the hardest songs in its own time, a proto 14 if you will. Then the remix made it a 16, and now it has a challenge chart, so of course there was only one way to go, and that's making this an 18. And it's a Shock Arrow 18. Lovely. If you can look past that, lost in between all of those Shock Arrows is an interesting chart. It follows the song and has a nice challenge. I mean, what did you expect? This is like something I would have made in edit mode on the PlayStation. The main problem is the Shock Arrows themselves. The unwritten rules that a line of Shock Arrows is equivalent to stepping on the center, while there's definitely sections of the chart where that's clearly the intention, including some rather sadistic patterns near the end, a huge portion of the Shock Arrows don't work this way, meaning if you tried doing the center step trick, you're now starting on the wrong foot. The solution, Konami if you're watching, take notes, would be to have 2 lines of Shock Arrows, making a sort of center panel foot switch, but then of course sprinkled throughout are Shock Arrow jumps that are too fast to step on the center every time. That's 3 different Shock Arrow techniques that would need to be utilized with no way of knowing which one works best on a first run through. Also, Shock Arrows suck. So, while ambitious and interesting, the chart is fundamentally flawed, and the music is a bit of a letdown. I'm giving it, sadly, a B-. And that's all 5 on the books. I'll reiterate what I said in a previous video, and say all the time spent making big events in order to just rehash old songs could be spent making something new. When everything is like an anniversary event, it feels more like an obligation or like some sort of marketing gimmick. 2DX came out before DDR and has no issue getting a brand new coat of paint every year, and that leads me to believe that Bimani thinks DDR is for old people, and I'm one of them. I don't know, what do you guys think? As always, tell me how I'm wrong in the comments, and I'll see everyone next time.